Okay, so today's demo lesson is for Academic Task 1 and we're looking at typical adverbs. So this lesson builds on what we did last week. So if you didn't watch the lesson on typical verbs, then please go back and watch that lesson first, because I'm expecting you to use those verbs in today's lesson with the adverbs that we look at right now. So we'll get started, but like I said, go back and watch last week's lesson if you haven't already seen it, or even if you watched it but you don't have notes made on the various verbs that you can use. Right, so this is a list of all the adverbs we're going to look at today. I have organized them loosely in alphabetical order, so just based on their first letter. So they're kind of there at random. And what I want you to do is I want you to organize them. So we're going to organize them in two ways. Some of these adverbs refer to the rate. So the rate is the speed at which something increased or decreased. So when you're looking at a line graph, did it increase quickly or slowly, or what way did it increase? And then the amount is the size by which something increased. So that could be like a measurement of how many kilos, or it could be the number of people, or it could be the distance traveled, or whatever else, but it would be like the quantity or the size. So I want you to do two things for me. First, divide these 16 adverbs into, are they referring to rate or amount, but also put them, like order them with regard to, if it's in rate, how fast to how slow, or if the adverb refers to the amount, order them in relation to big, from big to small, like that. So first, organize according to rate or amount, and second, order in relation to the degree. Okay, so I'll just give you a few seconds, so pause the video while you're doing this and then press play when you're ready to see the answers. Right, so I'm going to continue and I'm going to show you what I have here. So the rate, we have suddenly, steeply, sharply and rapidly. These four are in green because they all kind of refer to being fast or sharp. The next two, steadily and consistently, so that's in between, and then gradually and slowly is the rate is kind of lesser, to a lesser degree. Then with amount we have drastically, which is on its own, so I have that in the dark red, dark green. Then substantially, significantly and considerably, so they are all together again, so they would be big, whereas dramatically would be very big. Then modestly and moderately is kind of like a medium range, and slightly and marginally is small. Okay, so rather than explaining each individually, you kind of get the idea, but if there are any you've never heard of before, just pause the video and check out the dictionary, but you should see, based on the color, what they represent. Okay, so the next thing to take into consideration is, why did I divide these into rate and these into amount? So why is that significant, or why should we care whether they refer to the rate or the amount? So let's just have a look at this chart here. So the bar chart goes from January to December, whereas the pie chart represents what happened in January and what happened in December. So let's say the pie chart would be let's say, for example, we took the bar chart and we took out all the information from February to November, and we only have January and December. That is essentially what we're getting with the pie chart. What happened at the very start, what happened at the very end. So obviously they're representing different things, but essentially the pie chart would be like the first line from January, and then the second pie chart would be the last line from December, the last bar from December. So what that means is that with rate, we can refer to the line chart, we can use the adverbs of rate to refer to what happened between January and December. So did it increase quickly, did it increase slowly, was there a sharp increase? So you can see from May to June that we can see here there's a sharp increase here, or it increased, excuse me, I'm using my nouns, so it increased sharply or rapidly between May and June. But when we only have the pie charts, we don't know what happened in between, so we can only talk about the amount of change. So we can't see what happened over time, we can only refer to the amount, whereas when you can see what happened over time, you can refer to the rate, but you can also refer to the amount. So over time you can use rate and amount, Whereas if you only have a little snapshot of what happened at the start and what happened at the end, then we can only use amount because we didn't see what happened in the middle. So that's why it's very, very important when you're learning these to learn in these categories that these ones for rate can only be used if you're looking at a graph over time. So just be very careful with that. That's pretty much the most important part of this lesson, is that you don't confuse when and where to use the different types of adverb. So just a quick note then, I'm sure that most of you know this, if not all of you know this, but just to recap while we're talking about it, when you're putting the adverb with the verb, it's the verb first, and then the adverb second. So it increased suddenly, or it increased dramatically, or whatever it may be. So you have your subject, the verbs that we looked at last week, so that's what you're going to be using today, and the adverbs that we used today. So this is your question. Now this isn't a real IELTS question, but it's perfect for today's situation in that we have one chart where we can use rate and one chart where we cannot use rate. So what I want you to do today is just write a short paragraph describing what happened in the bar chart, and a second paragraph describing what happened in the pie charts down here. Okay, so because we're focusing on language, we're not looking at the paraphrase, we're not looking at the overview. I don't really mind too much if you compare the difference between males and females in this chart. So we're not writing an IELTS answer, we're practicing using the adverbs that we looked at today. So combine last week's lesson with this week's lesson and describe these two charts for me. Okay, so that's pretty much it. That's all I wanted to show you. As always, put your answers in the comments below, and then tomorrow I'll go back through what you wrote and give you more advice on how to improve further. Okay, thank you guys, and talk to you tomorrow.